In the last video I did of the Expanse themed PC gaming 3D printed mod doohickey, I talked about that we were going to do some airflow balancing and some temperature optimizations and stuff. So today that's what we're going to do, because I've got to find the balance between overpowering a single fan with two fans but making sure everything gets cooled. CableMod is proud to announce their new 90-degree 12-volt high-power replacement cable sets. Designed to eliminate tight bends on your GPU, the C-Series cables feature standard and reverse 90-degree connectors right on your cable and terminate to standard PCIe plugs designed for your specific GPU. Available in most popular PSU styles, the C-Series cables offer peace of mind with the highest warranty policy in the industry. To see the supported list of PSUs and full warranty policy, follow the sponsored link in the description below. Also too, they are loading a truck out there with a forklift, so you might hear some banging and some beeping and stuff. It's not us, I swear. But anyway, moving on. If you have not seen the videos about building this system, technically it's modding this system. This is a pre-built Falcon Northwest Tiki PC, which is a very small form factor build. Go and watch those videos. There's 4 parts from beginning to end on that. Anyway, I've currently got the GPU running right now. It's been looping probably for about the last 15 or 20 minutes now with Speedway. This is a ray tracing title. We are loading up the GPU fully with ray tracing so that we make sure we get full heat. I also have the fans that are being controlled by iCUE right now set to balanced. Now here's the thing. When it comes to, and iCUE is kind of nice in the sense that it's very powerful in that we can use either the fan temperature sensors on the hub to control our temperatures or our speeds. We can use GPU, any sensor that iCUE sees, you can use as a trigger for controlling the fans, which is nice because if we set it to CPU load and a game that you're playing doesn't really trigger the CPU a whole lot to increase temps, then these fans wouldn't ramp up to blow on the GPU, which is the whole point. Now these fans are blowing directly on the graphics card's fans, and then it's exhausting out the top and out the back and some of the holes on the other side. When it comes to the CPU, we have a single 120 radiator on an AIO on a 7800X3D. This is a 4080 ProArt, by the way, if you guys don't know. The 4080 ProArt is what comes in the Tiki. If you go with the 40 series high-end card, because it's the only one that will fit, the 4090s are too big. But anyway, these initially had 15 millimeter slim Silverstone fans on the insides of the case. And obviously I went with full-size, full-speed 120s on the outside of the case. And one of the things I noticed is if I have these 120s running too fast, obviously the 120 on the other side cannot overcome the amount of intake pressure these are creating, so we kind of get some turbulent static air. And we really do need the air to blow through the fan, through the radiator, and onto the motherboard, and obviously through the rad to cool it off. So anyway, what I'm doing right now is I'm just seeing with the fans sent to balanced in iCUE. So you can see they're running at about 1500 RPM, give or take, based on some of the resistances. Now, where you see here, the QX RGB number 1 temp, 2 temp, and 3 temp, those are the temp sensors that are on the fans themselves. Now, those aren't gonna be doing me a whole lot of good because of the fact that they're always gonna be reading ambient air coming into the case, because right now they're all set as intakes. Now, if I was setting them as exhaust, and the air going through those sensors was reading the warm air that's coming out of the case, then I could just use the sensors on the fans to speed up and slow down. Those don't do me any good in this particular configuration. Now, one of the things I want to test is flipping the fan on the AIO to an exhaust fan, increasing the speed on these fans, and then getting some cross flow across the system and out the AIO. Now the problem is it'll be picking up warmth from the GPU, so we might be increasing flow, but also increasing the airflow temperature, or the temperature of the air going through it, which could have a negative effect for what we're trying to do. So we just have to see how much the GPU temperatures heating up that air are going to affect the amount of thermal saturation that's going to be happening with the air as we cross through. Now anyway, temperatures right now are actually great on the GPU. We're sitting at 64 C on the GPU temp, and the hotspot's at 74 C. So 10 degrees difference on the hotspot and the normal temp, we're doing pretty good at 63 and 73. And that's with these sitting here at balanced. Now I did run a test already, which is this custom, literally says custom 1, which is nothing more than a 100% fan speed. And I've already done that on the GPU intakes. And you'll notice that the RPMs are gonna start climbing right here. 2350 or so. If they're 2500 RPM fans, the speed could be affected by the amount of resistance, which would slow down the blades. But anyway, when I ran them at this temp for quite a while, the GPU temperature only came down to 61. And the hottest I've seen it go is about 67 when they were on quiet. But what I noticed is when they were on quiet is the temperature coming out of the case was obviously warmer. So although the GPU temperature only went up a few degrees, I feel like the air coming out of the case with the heat saturation was a lot warmer. So I want to find a balance where I can keep the temperatures inside the chassis as a whole as low as possible, because there's other components to consider, not just the GPU, but there's obviously the motherboard has stuff on it. We got memory, we've got our SSD, we've got things we got to keep cool in there. So we can't just worry about two sensors, which is CPU and GPU, and call it a day. But for acoustic reasons, we don't want these running 100%. So I think I'm actually pretty comfortable right now with locking these at about, well, where was it? It was at 1400 RPM or so, right? So 60% fan speed. And for me to really test what's happening and the effect, I'm gonna have to use locked RPM. But then what I can do is when I figure out where my max RPMs need to be, I can then set my curves to use those as their max. So I'll set curves at the end based on where my fixed percentages end up landing. Okay, so as you can see now, I've got my, my vane probe sitting on top of the exhaust. You can see the blades moving. So there's your proof that there is airflow coming through there. And our temperature right now exiting the case, we need to wait for it to finish climbing. It's gonna take a little bit of time for it to finish its reading, but as you can see, it's warming up. So we gotta see where that stops moving before we can do anything else. All right, so our exhaust temp right now, you can ignore the CFM. This is kind of an arbitrary number because there's no formula calculation inputted into the meter so airflow, we can just see it go up or down, right? But our temperature here is 35.7 C. It'll probably balance out right around 36. It has really started to slow down now how long it takes to gain 1/10 of a C. For those of you that want to know what that is in Fahrenheit, that is 96.4 degrees Fahrenheit. So not terrible, really not that bad. But if I go ahead now and let's just go fixed RPM then. Let me put this now at, I don't know, 1500 RPM, just a little bit of a change. Now, I don't think we're gonna see any temperature changes, to be honest, with that FAM RPM. The reason being the GPU temperature has not changed. The GPU though, to be honest, this isn't the thing I'm most concerned with. It's the CPU. These temperatures are good. I just have to find, if I'm gonna leave the 120 AIO as an intake fan, I've gotta find the balanced RPM with this guy to not overpower that, as I've said. So I think I'm gonna leave this where it is. We're at 36.0 and then .1.0. So it's starting to come down the other way, which is fine. So I'm gonna leave those at a fixed 1600 RPM. Again, they're not that loud. I have to get like my ear like right up to it to really hear them. And I know like another 700 RPM available to them if I need it. So we've set our fan to fixed AIO intake, and let's just double check oh yeah, that's fixed. So we don't need to care about a sensor. That's good. Start running our multi-core, and let's keep an eye on our temperatures right here now. So package temp, 89C is our TJ max, 86, 87, 88.6, 89.1. So we have hit TJ max, but our frequencies haven't really suffered. Oh, that first one went down to 41 for a second. They're low 47s, which actually has suffered a little bit because we're looking for high 47s. Well, there they go, into the 48. So check it out. We're just locked at 89.8. So we are hitting our thermal limit. Now we haven't really lost a lot of clock speed, but we have lost some. It is fluctuating a little bit. Some of the cores are dropping down to 4.6. So we went from a 17.466 or whatever down to a 17.760. Geez, whatever that noise is outside is terrible. I apologize for that. But as you can see, we are stuck at, there's 90. It's now exceeded 89. And now we'll start to see there's 4.598, 4.572. So we have now gone into we are going to end up throttling territory at that fixed RPM. Now, typically, when I would leave this set to balanced, if we check this out, you'll notice the fan is going to crank. If we look at the RPMs here, look, 1600, 1800, 1900, 2000, 21, 22. And even though I'm balanced, it maxed out because our CPU is like, hey, we need the cooling. So what I want to now see is if there's a way that I can keep the CPU from hitting that max temperature without having to go max RPM. And I think there's a couple ways I'm gonna have to do that. So before we flip it around to an exhaust, let me go ahead now and add this 3D printed spacer, because this is not the most ideal grate right here. Like this is blocking off quite a bit of airflow. I'm gonna have to do this It's gonna be kind of interesting how I do this because these are holding the radiator. I think I can slide that out of the way.
Leave one.
Actually, you know what? There's our proof right now. We need to run this test first. We need to see if I just take the grate out of the equation entirely, what happens to our temperatures. Let me clear the min-max. We haven't touched the red yet. It's 86. Same deal. And the RPMs are at max still. But look at the RPM. See how it came up to 2400 from the low 23s? That shows resistance. Now, I still think I need to, on the inside here, cut that honeycomb grill out, because that's also unnecessary resistance right in front of the radiator fins. So you can now bet about 50% of the radiator grill is not getting direct airflow on it. Ideally, I would probably want one of these on either side of the fan, because the farther we can get the fan away from the radiator fins, the better airflow will get through them because there's a cushion of air in front of it. Our max temp we've hit so far in the package is 86.9. It's just the design of this grate. And the thing is, this is just one piece. This is easy for me to reprint in a different style. And then, yeah, we'll be fine. If it wasn't for the fact that it was just so obvious a PC fan, I would just technically just kind of leave it like this, but I'm not happy with the way that that looks. At the very least, what I can take away from this is that by having the grate out of the way or redesigned for better airflow will give me an improvement. But I now want to test the spacer.
Take your work and gaming experience to the next level with the ViewSonic XG340C 2K ultra-wide high-end display. The XG340C 2K 34-inch 100Hz ultra-wide monitor features HDMI 2.1, AMD FreeSync Premium Pro, a 1000R curved screen, VESA display HDR 400 and 1 millisecond response time for the ultimate immersive gaming experience. And take control of multiple devices with KVM support while also taking full control of your display via the Elite Display Controller. To see the full list of specs and features, follow the sponsored link in the description below.
Okay, so a slight change of plans here. We're gonna switch to exhaust on this fan because with all these 3D printed panels and stuff, my 37mm screws are not long enough to allow me to put that spacer on. You can see where I even like tried to take some material out so the screw head could sit farther down in there. That was a no-go. So I'm gonna have to source some longer screws if I want to try that method. But I think at least we can test exhaust right now and see if this is going to help. Because what this allows me to do now is I'll have the other intake fans contribute to the cooling making its way down to this fan. And there should still be plenty of cross flow amongst the stuff down in there. Now, one of the things I also wanted to try is I believe, just based on what I've been looking at when I put it back together, I might be able to go push-pull on this. And if I can go push-pull on this, then that might just give me, because if you look, I don't know if you can see down in there, it looks to me like there's enough of a gap to be able to get 25 mil, another one of these fans in there. It's gonna be tight, but this entire build is obviously tight, bro. Okay, we have now flipped this around to an exhaust. I'm now asking these fans to split air between up here and then coming down here, but I don't know, this is experimental. I don't know, I wouldn't call it scientific, but we're doing something. We're measuring some sort of results. Remember, the only difference between science and fucking around is writing it down. I think Adam Savage said that. We have hit 88.9 and we're at 87.9, 88.4, 88.3. So exhaust is probably not gonna be a whole lot different, although the air coming out of it isn't super, super warm. Our score is currently at a 17,410. So we've actually lost some score. But our frequencies are, well, yeah, they're down into the mid 47, 70, 4801, 47. I mean, we got the higher scores when it was up into the mid 48s, 4800s, which obviously translated to, oh, there we go. There's our red number. Okay, so we're like stuck, oh, never mind. We were like stuck at 88.8 for like a long time. Now we hit 89 again, and we can see our clocks dropped all the way down to the high 45, 90s, and our score has definitely dropped down. 17,687. So it's worse. It is absolutely worse than when we had it intaking without the grate. Look at how much is closed off on the bottom. See that? So it looks good on that side, but now, if if you just hold that against the yellow, look at how restricted that is. Where you see yellow is where air can flow. So we're like at least 50% blocked, maybe even more. So yeah, he's gonna make these louvers now straight so the air isn't having to turn. And then he's gonna make the triangle less wide so they're more thin. I'm gonna see if I can fit a push-pull in there. I feel like if Falcon Northwest could have fit a 120, 25 mil on the inside, like a standard size fan, they would have. Maybe they went with the 15 mil just for, I don't know, margin reasons. Look, I've tried hard to squeeze bigger things in tighter areas, okay? You take that however you want, but I absolutely have. Yeah, that's not gonna work. It hits the tubes before it's even close, before it's even anywhere near closing. Phil had said, well, why don't you put the 15 mil on there? The problem is, if you don't put matched fans and you have one fan moving significantly less air than another, then all that fan does is create resistance. It doesn't help in any way. All right. So I think what we figured out is we need to leave it as an intake, and we need to have a better flowing fan grill. So I guess what we'll have to do is when that fan grill is done, we'll put it all back to the way we started. And when that fan grill is done, then we can plop it on and see what our temps do. Actually, I lied. There's one test I want to do real quick, which is to cut the grate material out inside there. So I cut that honeycomb off and I put the grill back on, as you can see, and our temps have not hit, and it's been running for a bit, our temps have not hit 89 yet. 87.4 was the max spike, is at 86.1 right now. And our core clocks are staying much, much closer to 4,800 now. Clearly there's some increased airflow now because it's not going through some restriction, right into another restriction, right through the rad, which is restriction. We're getting now closer to direct airflow on the blades or the fins. Remember how I said, if we were to draw a pattern of that mesh material right on the radiator, and we were to hit it with spray paint, if I pulled that off, you would see a pattern. And what does that also mean? That means everywhere there's not paint is where there's also not air going through. So we're now getting better at creating a situation where air would be able to go through. So once we get the new grill on here, I have a feeling we'll be pretty close to as if this were just open and outside of the chassis. So, and again, 86.5, 86.8. So we are now under the 89 Celsius, which is our TJ Max. Now there's too many things that I think could bump us up to that ambient temperature. It's also gotten warmer in this room since we started making this video. So that's one thing to keep in mind. As the ambient temp goes up, so will the core temperatures in an exact linear motion with the ambient temperature. So if the ambient temp goes up 2C, so will the device, because I'm not gonna get into the physics, it's exactly how it works. So I actually think this is pretty good, because the thing is, while we're doing gaming and stuff and such, we are never gonna see temperatures get anywhere near that, which means I can leave the, and I do want the 120 going 100% AIO, or 100% fan speed, if it ever hits a load like this. I think that's a fair trade-off. That noise for a 240 on here would be ideal. And I already explained in the video why I didn't do a 240 on here. I'm pleased with the performance we're getting. We are getting pretty much 99% of our advertised performance. And remember, you could take 10 7800 X3Ds in identical builds and get 10 different scores out of them every single time. That's just because there's variance and things that are happening in the system. So I'm okay with this, because look, the second I turn off the test, our cores drop back down to the 30s. And if I run a synthetic benchmark or even any other games, it just goes up into about the 70s. And I've seen as high as 79 degrees while I was playing some games on this. Now that was when we did our initial test, but it's never gonna be anywhere. No game is ever gonna hit the CPU like Cinebench does. So as long as I always say this, if I can get my temperatures under control in Cinebench, I'm fine with the temperatures for anything else the system may do. So I think what we'll do is we'll just throw a picture up to show what the new grill looks like, because I know right now people are probably gonna be like, Jay, you need to do another test with the new grill. We've really opened it up. It's really gonna have very little effect, and it's gonna be better than what we have on there right now. But we gotta wrap this video up and keep going. So there you go. I'm pleased with the temperatures on this guy. The fact that I can feel cool air coming through here right now because of the fans blowing on the GPU. The GPU fans are no longer going to 0 RPM. I don't care for 0 RPM mode. I want them to be cool at all times. I can now feel cool air coming out these vents. So that means they're doing their job. All right, guys, thanks for watching. That's it for the Expanse build. I think I'm done showing this one off. I need to start thinking about what my next theme is gonna be. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one.